I love marketing. I really do. Um, I always say that mathematics is the wife and marketing is really my mistress. I enjoy doing research on marketing. I enjoy reading marketing books. I enjoy understanding marketing trends and what actually influences people's decision making and buying behavior and whatever. So that to me is absolutely interesting. And it's one of the things that when I see it often, that you will see a person who is going about their career. I've got someone very, very close to me that I was actually thinking about, and they are now stuck in this loop that I'm actually going to talk about, where they are insanely good at what they do, but they don't see or they do not understand the perception they've created around their work. They don't see the reputation they've actually built around their work. And so now they found themselves basically locked into a singular position. Like they've been in the same position for about 7 or 8 years, and they can't get promoted and whatever else. And so like they're in this position. And when I thought about them, I really began to realize that this happens so often with so many people that I do know and others perhaps that I hear of, is in the fact that people get so caught on their work that they actually do not think about, lack of a better word, the marketing aspect of their work. They don't think about how their work is actually being perceived. They don't think about how their work is being received. I had another close friend who had started a job somewhere, and after about a month or two, he's like, I don't think my boss likes me or whatever. And he began, and he actually began to recount the story of how the first 2 months was in that job. And I said to him, you've actually made a mistake. And that is why they are behaving the way that they are behaving towards you. And he said, what? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, your boss feels insecure about you. You make your boss feel insecure. And so they are jaded towards you. But those are things that you actually do not think about when you are doing your job. You don't think about how what you are doing is actually being received or even how it's being perceived. And the problem with that is in the fact that more often than not, you rub certain individuals up the wrong way, whose approval you actually need to make it to the next step, or there are certain pieces of information or certain skills they have, but because you've created this animosity unknowingly against yourself, or rather towards you, from them, you find yourself in a situation where now you can't even learn from this person. You can't even, when it comes to the good projects and whatever else, more often than not, they will keep you out of it. Because of how now you are being perceived, and you see this happening repeatedly. And it's one of the things that personally I would advise anyone who's at a place where either you're starting out in your career or you're feeling a bit stuck in where you are at in your career and whatever else. I would personally advise you get into some marketing books, get into some psychology books, and understand certain biases that people actually have. And when you understand, and it's one of the things that Robert Greene actually talks about in his book, The Laws of Human Nature. And he said the first law of human nature is that human beings believe there are no laws of human nature. We tend to think that we are rational human beings that sometimes do irrational things. But it's actually more often than not, the opposite is what is true. We are actually very irrational and we sometimes do rational things, and the marketing industry is an industry that's actually understood that. They've understood what actually drives your decision making, and it's not what you think. They've understood what it is that will cause you to buy this brand and not that brand. They've understood that if they can put a half naked woman next to a cigarette, somehow you find a specific affinity towards it. That means your decision to buy that cigarette brand as opposed to the other is not a rational decision, because the connotation or the correlation that you've now created is not rational at all. The two things are not related. But because of what your eyes see, because of what because of the how the ad is presented and how you are perceiving the brand itself and whatever else, all of a sudden your behavior is being influenced. So you are making irrational decisions all the time. And for the most part, that is essentially how marketing actually works, is that the target market, the people that you are actually trying to influence, you need to understand their psychographics. You need to understand how they actually think and how they actually process certain decisions. And that's why you can find an insurer in a township advertising funeral policies, but when you see them in the city, they are talking about life insurance, because they understand the certain psychographic behavior of the demographic of people that they're trying to influence and their decisions that they're trying to influence. And it's one of the things that I do not think people actually think about enough, in as far as their careers are concerned, and how they are being perceived even in their place of work, and how their work is being received and perceived. And that is where now you start making all of these decisions ignorantly. You are making all of these decisions unknowingly. You are saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. You are rubbing up the wrong people the wrong way, and you are creating all the wrong kinds of influences, or the wrong kinds of connections. And so you find yourself now having locked yourself in a specific position, or in a specific job, or in a specific career, not because your skill isn't higher, not because you can't do anything else, but because of the perception that you've now created around what it is that you do. I think a company that's actually done this extremely well is Apple. Apple has been able to create a perception around itself that has nothing specifically to do with computers and whatever else. And so that's why they've been able to move into so many markets. When Apple came out with, I believe it was the iPod, Dell also came out with their own MP3 player. And people were like, who the hell would buy an MP3 player from a computer company? And at the same time, had an iPod in their pocket. So they didn't perceive, they didn't see Apple as necessarily a computer company, even though that is what they were. But the perception that they had created had very little to actually do with the computer itself, and more to do with the innovation, more to do with the lifestyle, more to do with the way of thinking of the kind of people that they were actually looking to sell to, and the kind of people that actually resonate with the Apple brand. And so in your line of work, you need to understand, for the most part, the zeitgeist, the overarching philosophy, the overarching way of life of that industry. Because once you understand that, then you will understand how you need to be perceived in order to make your way up. You will then know how you need to be perceived in order to become more valuable. It's not just about becoming better. It's also about a very close friend of mine. I was actually talking about this with him about a week or so ago. He shared with me this idea that I really liked. He calls it perception management. You have to manage the perceptions. You have to manage how your work is being perceived. You have to manage how your career is being perceived. You have to manage how you are being perceived by people who are in those decision-making seats. And if you do not do that, you're going to make all kinds of mistakes, and you will wonder why things are actually not moving the way that you thought they would, only to find that you've created the wrong perception around your work, around yourself, and around your career, within amongst the people that are in those decision-making positions. And that's where now you find yourself with a huge problem.